Hello, I'm here to talk about Proposition 14 on stem cell research. So, voting yes means that you approve of California issuing another $5.5 billion of bonds for the Stem Cell Research Institute. This actually stems from 2004 when California overall voted yes on Proposition 71 for the government to issue $3 billion of bonds for Stem Cell Research Institute. So, continuing on with that, now that the government has slowly run out of money, they want to ask voters now if they approve of the government issuing another 5.5 billion of bonds for stem cell research. So this goes from just research trials and different equipment and facilities, things like that. And it's for research into different diseases such as Parkinson's and cancer. So voting a yes would just be you do approve, and voting a no would be you do not.
Okay, let's talk Props 15 and 16. Prop 15 is a proposition that would change the way that commercial and industrial properties are taxed. A vote yes for Prop 15 would be supporting an amendment that would require these properties to be taxed at their current market value instead of at their original purchase price. This amendment would not affect residential properties. So your home, for example, would still be taxed according to the initial price at which you bought it. This difference between how commercial properties versus residential properties are taxed is a term known as split roll. A fiscal analyst estimated that if this ballot measure were to go through, it would generate an additional $8 to $12.5 billion in revenue per year. As for Prop 16, Prop 16 is a proposition to repeal Prop 209, which was passed in the 1990s and banned affirmative action. A vote yes for Prop 16 would be supporting the repeal of 209 and allowing government and public institutions to take race and sex into account in public education, public contracting, and public employment.
Hi, my name is Christine, and I'm here to talk to you about the Proposition 17 on the California ballot. Proposition 17 would mean that it would be a constitutional amendment that would allow people convicted of felonies who are on parole to be able to vote. Now, when you're on parole, that means that you have completed your prison term, and that also means that you have been overseen by a board who thinks that you are capable of integrating back into society. So voting yes on Proposition 17 would mean that you would vote to allow people convicted of felonies who are on parole to be able to vote. However, voting no on Proposition 17 would mean that you would uphold the Constitution and not amend it. So yeah, that's all. Good luck. Be sure to vote. It's our civic duty. Yeah.
Hi everybody, Daniel here from Cal Habitat, and I wanted to talk about Prop 18. So if your 18th birthday happens to fall in between the primaries and the general election of a given election year, this prop would allow you to be eligible to vote in both of those elections, whereas under the current rules, you would be ineligible from voting in the primaries because you're 17. Now, 17 states and Washington, D.C. have already approved similar rules, so if California votes yes on this prop, we would just be following in the footsteps of those other states. So, however you feel on this matter, please go out and vote. Yep, it's just something we should all do, and I hope you all have a good experience voting.
Proposition 19, which is on this general elections ballot, changes property tax rules, allowing homeowners who are over 55, disabled, or victims of natural disasters transfer part of their property tax base with them when they sell their home and purchase a new one.
California Proposition 20 deals with criminal justice. The initiative adds crimes to the list of violent felonies for which early parole is restricted, recategorizes certain kinds of theft and fraud as wobblers, which are crimes that can either be categorized as a misdemeanor or a felony, and it requires DNA collection for certain kinds of misdemeanors. This bill is supported by the Republican Party of California and the Orange County Board of Supervisors. This bill is opposed by the California Democratic Party, the former governor of California, Jerry Brown, and the ACLU of California.
Hi everybody, I'm here to talk to you about Proposition 21, also known as the Local Rent Control Initiative.
So in California, we have more than 17 million renters, and in recent years, the price of rental housing has skyrocketed. That means that a majority of California renters are overburdened, with about a third of rental households spending more than 50% of their income towards rent. Proposition 21 is actually very similar to Proposition 10, which we saw in 2018, and back then, 59% of voters voted against it. But if passed, Proposition 21 would expand local government authority to enact rent control to nearly all rental housing, and that includes townhouses, condos, and single-family homes, as long as the property is more than 15 years old. People who support Proposition 21 argue that it would keep people in affordable homes and prevent them from falling into homelessness. They also say that given the immense impact that COVID-19 has had on unemployment, the need for rent control is greater than ever. On the other hand, people who oppose Proposition 21 argue that it discourages the private sector from wanting to invest in and bring to market affordable units. They also say that in addition to taking away a lot of home ownership protections, it also just simply isn't a proactive solution to the housing crisis. So this is a lot of food for thought, but I hope you guys take your time to really read up on your propositions and have a fun time voting.
Proposition 22 would consider app-based drivers to be independent contractors and not employees. So this bill overrides Assembly Bill 5 from 2019, which established a 3-factor test to determine whether a worker could be classified as an independent contractor. So a yes vote supports this ballot, and it allows companies, rideshare companies and delivery driver companies such as Uber and DoorDash to define their workers as independent contractors. And then a no vote opposes this ballot initiative, and it basically means that the Assembly Bill 5 will still apply for rideshare companies and for delivery companies.
Hello, I'm here today to talk to you about Proposition 23, which is on healthcare. So basically, this ballot measure would set out some requirements for chronic dialysis clinics. And first, these clinics are required to have a minimum of 1 licensed physician present at the clinic while patients are being treated, with an exception for when there's a bona fide shortage of physicians. Additionally, it will require there to be a report on data on the dialysis-related infections to the state health department and National Healthcare Safety Network. It would also require the principal officer of the clinic to certify under penalty of perjury that he or she is satisfied after the review and that the submitted report is accurate and complete. And finally, it will require chronic dialysis clinics to provide a written notice to the state health department and obtain consent from the state health department before closing a chronic dialysis clinic. Awesome, thank you.
Prop 24, the California Privacy Rights and Enforcement Act of 2020, expands and amends the California Consumer Privacy Act of 2018. It creates the California Privacy Protection Agency, removes the ability of businesses to fix violations before they are penalized for them, and requires businesses to not share consumers' personal information upon their request, provide an opt-out option for having your sensitive personal information obtained, and obtain permission before collecting data from anyone who's under 16, parent and guardian permission before collecting data from anyone who's under 13, and correct a consumer's personal information upon the consumer's request.
Hi, so I'm going to be explaining Prop 25 to you guys. Prop 25 is the Replace Cash Bail with Risk Assessment referendum, and it's on the ballot as a veto referendum. So a little background knowledge. When someone is arrested, there's a decision made by the legal system as to whether or not to keep that person detained until their next trial. Cash bail may be paid in order to release someone who has been detained before their trial date with the promise that they will actually return to future trials and hearings. Suspects could post bail with their own money or through a commercial bail bond agent who pay the full amount of the bail in exchange for the suspect paying a non-refunded roughly 10% of the bail. By voting no, which is something that the bond industries urge you to do, you are essentially saying that you want to go back to the cash bail system. By voting yes, it means that you want to get rid of the cash bail system and instead replace it with a risk assessment. which would categorize suspects as low, medium, or high risk. So yeah, go vote.